You know, the kind of morning where everything's just fine? Not great, not terrible, just comfortably, boringly fine. That was me last Tuesday. Eggs frying, coffee percolating, Spotify playing some random playlist Claire swore helped her concentrate. The dog was snoring under the table. My socks even matched. The kind of peaceful that doesn't feel fragile until you look back and realize it was. I remember thinking, as I sat there buttering toast, that life had finally evened out. We'd been married 8 years. Nothing flashy, just solid. She worked from home, something in brand strategy that I never fully understood, and I commuted to a small design firm downtown. We were one of those couples that didn't need a lot of noise. Our rhythm was low maintenance. Grocery lists on the fridge. Wine on Fridays. Weekend shows we always fell asleep halfway through. Claire had this best friend, Jenna. Blonde, sarcastic, always around. They'd been tight since college. I actually liked Jenna. She was easy to be around, knew how to make a good old-fashioned, and didn't mind watching baseball with me when Claire was off in her phone world. In hindsight, that probably should have been a clue. Claire hated baseball. But you don't notice these things in real time. Not when your life is humming along just well enough to keep you from looking too closely. I'd kiss Claire on the cheek before heading out, and she'd be in leggings with her laptop open, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, Jenna probably texting her something sarcastic. Sometimes I'd even catch her smiling at her phone and joke that she smiled more at that screen than at me. She'd roll her eyes. I'd head to work. We were okay. Not perfect. Not broken. Just okay. Until the day I noticed a mug. Not just any mug, her favorite mug. The chipped yellow one from our first trip to Santa Fe. I noticed it in the drying rack after I came home early from work. Weird thing was, she wasn't home that day. Said she was running errands. But the coffee inside the mug was still warm. One little detail. One dumb, easy to overlook thing. But I knew Claire didn't drink coffee in the afternoons. And that mug? She never left it out. She hand-washed it like it was some antique family heirloom. Always dried it and placed it back in the cabinet. Always. The fact that it was sitting there, dripping on the rack? That was the pebble that started the avalanche. I stood there staring at that mug like it was a crime scene. Something small had shifted. I just didn't know what, yet. And the worst part? I wasn't even looking for trouble. I wasn't snooping or checking her phone or wondering about anything. I was just a guy trying to get the afternoon coffee going. And then suddenly, I wasn't. So there I was, standing in my own kitchen like a detective who'd stumbled into a case he didn't ask for. That yellow mug sitting in the drying rack felt off. I know that sounds dumb. A mug? Really? But when you've been with someone long enough, you start to pick up on the small inconsistencies. The details that don't fit the pattern. And this didn't fit. Claire was a creature of habit. That mug never sat out. Ever. She washed it, dried it, and stored it on the top shelf, second from the left. Religious about it. Always said she didn't want to risk cracking it. So why was it sitting out now, still damp, coffee stain half-rinsed? I opened the cabinet. Empty space where it was supposed to be. I stared at it longer than I should have, trying to logic my way out of what my gut was screaming at me. Maybe she used it this morning? No. I was here. She used her black tumbler. I made the coffee. I handed it to her. I know what I saw. So then who? The couch pillows were fluffed differently. Jenna's hoodie, the green one with the worn-out cuffs, was hanging over the back of the chair. Claire didn't mention Jenna was coming over. Normally, she would. They were basically joined at the hip, and Jenna practically lived here on weekends. But Claire always told me. Not because I asked, she just did. This time? Nothing. I walked upstairs. Claire's perfume lingered in the hallway, but something else hung in the air too. Something faint, but not hers. A cologne? A new shampoo? Couldn't place it. I peeked in the guest room. Sheets weren't quite tucked right. Blanket half-folded. Again, maybe nothing. Maybe everything. That's how it starts, isn't it? Not with screaming. Not with lipstick on the collar. It starts with little, ordinary things that suddenly feel wrong. Still, I didn't say anything that night. When Claire came home, arms full of groceries and some story about running into a friend at the store, I smiled. Nodded. Carried in the bags. Because in that moment, I didn't want answers. I wanted to believe I was imagining it. That it was just a mug. I'd find out later, it wasn't. The thing about suspicion is, it doesn't scream at you. It whispers. Soft. Persistent. It lives in the quiet gaps between explanations. The look that's just a second too delayed. The phone screen that tilts just a little too far away. The text notification that gets swiped before you can see who it's from. And that week, The whispers got louder. Claire had always been glued to her phone, nothing new there. But now she wasn't just glued to it, she was protective of it. Obsessed. Like it was some rare artifact that couldn't risk exposure to daylight. I'd walk into a room, and suddenly she'd flip its screen down. Sometimes she'd leave it in another room when I was nearby, which, ironically, only made it stand out more. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I was letting one out-of-place mug turn into a full-blown conspiracy theory. I mean, come on, Jenna was her best friend. And okay, they were close. Really close. Always had their little inside jokes, their whispered conversations. But that's just how women are, right? That's what I told myself. Still, I couldn't shake this weird shift in Claire's mood. She was different. Not in a big, dramatic way. Just distant. Distracted. Like I was background noise. Conversations got shorter. Eye contact became rare. I'd try to tell her about something at work, and halfway through she'd glance at her phone or zone out completely. Then there were the work sessions. Claire and Jenna had apparently been working on some freelance branding project together. Fine. Great. But these late-night sessions started happening more often. Wine bottles would pile up. Candles lit. Laughter coming from the spare room that wasn't quite casual. And it wasn't just the frequency. It was the way Claire talked about Jenna, with this weird mix of annoyance and defensiveness, like she knew I was starting to notice something but wanted to keep me confused just enough to back off. One night, I walked into the spare room to grab an extra charger. They went quiet. Not awkward, caught mid-conversation quiet. I'm talking TV show gets muted during a tense scene kind of quiet. Jenna was sitting cross-legged on the floor, flushed, scrolling her phone. Claire was standing by the window, arms folded, like she'd been interrupted. Nothing happened. But everything felt like it had. And you know what I did? Nothing. Because I still hadn't seen anything concrete. No texts. No evidence. Just tension. Still, that mug never left my mind. Because once you notice one thing's off, you start seeing all the others. And the worst part? I wasn't ready to know the truth. But I was already standing in its shadow. It happened on a Sunday. One of those lazy, gray sky afternoons where nothing's urgent. I was cleaning out the coat closet, something I'd been putting off for months, and found her old iPad buried under scarves and an extension cord. I almost tossed it in the donate pile, but something made me stop. Claire never used it anymore. Not since she upgraded her phone. Still, I charged it up, thinking I'd reset it and maybe keep it for travel. Dumb, simple reason. But that's how it always starts, right? Curiosity pretending to be practicality. It booted up faster than I expected. No password. Just Claire's home screen. Frozen in time, apps still scattered the same way she'd set them years ago. Most of them logged out. Except one. Her photo app. Now look, I'm not proud of what I did next. But I think anyone in my position would understand. When something in your gut feels off, you either dig or you stay buried. I tapped the photo icon. The gallery opened. At first, nothing. Just old shots of vacations, birthday cakes, selfies in the mirror. Then I saw a folder named Jen_stuff. My chest tightened. I tapped it. And there it was. Pictures. Screenshots. Notes. The kind of stuff you don't save by accident. Text between them, saved like memories. Some innocent, jokes, playlists, lunch plans. Others, not. I didn't need to read much to understand the subtext. The way they talked about alone time. The late-night wine sessions. The sleepovers. I remember one line, saved from Jenna to Claire. I hate hiding, but I love this. That was the moment the illusion cracked. It wasn't just flirting. It wasn't just emotional closeness. It was them. Together. Fully. No more theories. No more maybe this, maybe that. Just truth. Unfiltered. Ugly. And you know what burned the most? It wasn't that she was sleeping with someone else. It's that she convinced me it wasn't cheating. That it was normal for women to have this kind of closeness. That I was being paranoid. That it was just friendship. That I should appreciate how open-minded she was, because other wives didn't even have that honesty. I sat on the edge of the bed, iPad in hand, staring out the window. It didn't feel like rage. Not yet. It felt like someone had just taken a piece of my foundation and pulled it loose, and I was waiting to see if the whole house would come down. Spoiler, it did. You ever try to explain betrayal to someone who's already rewritten the script? That was Claire. A master of twisting the knife and convincing you she's doing you a favor. I didn't confront her right away after finding the messages. I needed time to wrap my head around what I'd read. Time to figure out if I was crazy, or if she really was just that good at lying with a straight face. So I tested the waters. I brought up Jenna one night, casually, asked if they were still working on that branding project. Claire barely looked up from her phone, said they weren't, just hanging out now. I asked if Jenna was still staying over so much. She shrugged, said it was just easier that way since she lived far and felt safer here. Safer. That word sat weird in my mouth. Then, without me even pushing, Claire launched into this long monologue about how some men just didn't understand the emotional bond between women. That society taught men to see intimacy only in physical terms, but women were deeper than that, she said. More evolved. She said it like a TED Talk, like she was doing me a favor by letting me in on this enlightened truth. How some friendships are stronger than marriages. How I shouldn't feel threatened by something that doesn't concern me. Right. Nothing to see here. Just two women doing intense emotional bonding under the same blanket on the couch while sipping Merlot at midnight. She even had the nerve to say she was proud of us. Proud, because we'd reached a point where we didn't need to be traditional to be secure. That most husbands would never allow their wives this kind of emotional freedom. And you know what? For a hot second, I believed her. I really did. Because that's what gaslighting does. It doesn't just make you doubt her. It makes you doubt yourself. I started wondering if I was being insecure. If I was just too rigid. If maybe, somehow, I was the problem for not understanding modern relationships. But deep down, I knew. I knew what I saw in those messages. I knew how she looked at Jenna when she thought I wasn't watching. I knew the weird tension in the room when I'd walk in. I knew the yellow mug didn't lie. And still, I smiled. Still played dumb. Still kissed her goodnight while she slipped off to text the woman she was probably in love with. I told myself I was waiting for more proof. But the truth? I was waiting for the courage to admit I'd already found enough. There's a tipping point in every mess like this. A moment where you can't unsee, unhear, unfeel what's right in front of you. For me, it was a Thursday night. One of those quiet evenings where everything looks normal on the surface. Dinner was leftovers, Claire had her hair tied up in a messy bun, and Jenna's car was in the driveway. Again, I told myself I wouldn't snoop anymore. I told myself I'd wait for her to come clean. But curiosity doesn't care about your moral high ground. While they giggled in the living room over some reality show, I went upstairs. Her phone was charging on her nightstand, screen down as usual. But her iPad, the one I'd found earlier, that was in her office. Still synced. And this time, there were videos. Not explicit ones. Nothing anyone could get arrested for. But intimate. Too intimate. One of them was just Claire and Jenna on the couch, wine in hand, talking to the camera like it was a diary. Claire said something like, "He still thinks we're just best friends," and Jenna laughed, not nervous laughter. Confident. Like the joke had already been made and I was the punchline. Another video, Claire was lying in bed, whispering into the camera with Jenna beside her, sleeping. She whispered that she didn't feel guilty because I wouldn't understand anyway. That I wouldn't be enough for this version of her. This version of her. That phrase stuck in my chest like a splinter. She'd evolved, apparently. Graduated from me while I was still packing her lunch and fixing the squeaky dryer like some loyal golden retriever with a toolbox. The irony? I thought we were still working. Still solid. She was reinventing herself while I was just showing up. And Jenna? She wasn't some side fling. She was the main thing. I was the side. The cover. The stable guy who paid the mortgage and didn't ask too many questions. The husband who was supportive, without knowing he was being used like a stepping stone to something truer, as Claire put it in one of her entries. That night, I sat on the floor of our bathroom and didn't move for 2 hours. Not because I was broken. Because I was done. Whatever came next, confrontation, fallout, whatever, I knew this was the line. The final one. There was no maybe anymore. She wasn't confused. She wasn't experimenting. She was cheating. With her best friend. And somehow, I've been convinced that made me the old-fashioned one. I thought about how I do it. The big confrontation. Some part of me wanted it to be loud, dramatic. You know, the kind of scene where I finally get to say everything and she finally has to listen. Maybe even feel something. But when the moment came, it wasn't like that at all. It was Sunday morning. Cold, overcast. I made coffee like I always did. She came downstairs in a sweatshirt that wasn't mine. Jenna's, probably. Hair in a bun, phone in her hand, no eye contact. Just another day to her. I handed her a mug, sat down across the table, and said I knew. No lead-up. No accusations. Just those 2 words. She didn't even ask what I knew. That's how fast the blood drained from her face. She set the coffee down slowly, like it might explode. I told her I'd seen the messages, the folder, the videos, all of it. That I wasn't angry, not in the way she expected. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I wasn't begging her to stay. I was just done. And you know what she said? She said I was being dramatic. She said it wasn't cheating because there was no man involved. That I was overreacting. That I should be proud of how evolved we were, her word again, because we weren't bound by traditional roles. That she hadn't lied, she just withheld information because I couldn't handle the truth. I asked her why she didn't just leave, if she was so unfulfilled. She said, and I'll never forget this, because I didn't think you'd ever notice. That one cut deeper than anything else. She didn't stay because she loved me. She stayed because I was convenient. Because I was safe. Because I made it easy for her to play house while building a second life behind my back. That was the moment I stopped loving her. You don't come back from that. I stood up, took my coffee, and walked upstairs. Packed a bag. Just the essentials. I wasn't going to fight for the house. Or the couch. Or the photo albums. Let her have them. Let her play perfect wife with Jenna, if that's the fantasy she wanted. But she wasn't going to have me. Not anymore. Not even a piece. You don't really think about what comes after. After you walk out. After you stop playing the part of the forgiving husband. After the illusion shatters and there's nothing left but cold air and empty coffee mugs. People assume the hard part is the confrontation. The truth. But that's the easy bit. It's clean. Sharp. Has an edge you can hold on to. The fallout? That's where it gets murky. I stayed at a buddy's place for a few nights. Jason, the kind of guy who doesn't ask a lot of questions, just tosses you a pillow and a beer and lets you sit in silence. I needed that. No lectures. No pity. Just a place to breathe. But eventually, people start asking. Friends. Her family. Even my own sister. Everyone suddenly wants to understand why things fell apart. You try telling them. My wife fell in love with her best friend and convinced me it was normal while gaslighting me into thinking I was a jealous caveman. Doesn't go over well. Her mom called me unreasonable. Said it's not cheating if it's another woman, as if betrayal suddenly comes with fine print. A few of Claire's friends messaged me too, thinly veiled jabs wrapped in concern. I just wish you could have supported her exploring her truth. Like I'm the villain for not being progressive enough to celebrate my own humiliation. And the worst part? Some people got it. They nodded, said they were sorry, asked if I was okay. But even then, I could see it in their eyes, that quiet curiosity. Like they were trying to figure out how they'd missed the signs. How I missed them. What I did to let it get that far. Because no one wants to believe it could happen to them. So they needed to somehow be your fault. But I wasn't looking for sympathy. I just wanted honesty. Instead, I got texts from Claire. Not apologies, of course not. Just check-ins. Like we were still friends. Like I was just going through a phase. She said Jenna was staying with her more often now, and that she hoped one day we could laugh about all this. She really said that. I stared at the message, trying to decide if it was arrogance or delusion. Probably both. I didn't reply. Some endings don't need closure. Just distance. You don't think about the silence at first. When everything blows up, your mind is too busy replaying scenes, dissecting moments, trying to find the exact second it all went wrong. But after the dust settles, after you've told your story, packed your bag, changed your lock screen, that's when silence creeps in. And let me tell you, it's loud. Not the kind of loud that screams. The kind that echoes. The kind that fills every corner of the apartment Jason lent me while I figured things out. Every clink of the spoon in my coffee mug. Every squeak of the old floorboard near the bathroom. It all sounded like what used to be there. Like Claire's laugh bouncing off the kitchen walls. Like the hum of her playlist when she worked in the dining room. Like the muted rhythm of her and Jenna talking late into the night while I told myself they were just catching up. You start wondering what to do with the memories. They don't just disappear. I mean, I couldn't even make eggs without thinking of how she liked them, scrambled, barely salted. She had this weird thing about overcooked eggs. Said they tasted like chalk. Now I stood at the stove, staring at a pan, not hungry at all. What do you do with a memory like that? Do you erase it? Rewrite it? Pretend it never mattered? I tried deleting our pictures from my phone. Made it through maybe 20 before I got stuck on one. Her in the backyard, sunglasses on, holding our dog like he was a baby. I stared at it for a while. Then I closed the app. Couldn't do it. Not yet. I was angry, sure. Hurt. Humiliated. But I was also just sad. Because even though I knew what she did, And even though I knew I had to walk away, part of me still missed the version of her I thought was real. The version that laughed at my dumb jokes. That kissed me on the forehead when I was sick. That danced barefoot in the living room just because the right song came on. That version wasn't real. Or maybe she was, and she just didn't stick around. Either way, she was gone. And I was left with silence. The kind you can't mute. The kind that reminds you, over and over, that you were building a life with someone who was building an escape plan. They always talk about moving on like it's some clean, motivational montage. New haircut. Gym membership. One wild rebound. Cue upbeat music, and suddenly you're healed. What they don't tell you is that moving on often looks more like surviving. And survival's not glamorous. It's brushing your teeth while staring at the wall. It's eating cold leftovers at 2 a.m. because you forgot what dinner was supposed to be. It's checking your phone for no reason, even though you've already blocked her number and muted the shared friends who kept tagging her in empowered women quotes. I wasn't thriving. I was functioning. Barely. People kept saying I was doing the right thing. That leaving was brave. That boundaries are healthy and you deserve better. And yeah, I knew that. On paper, I was making all the right moves. Found a temporary place. Got back to work. Saw a therapist. Even started running again. But none of it felt like healing. It felt like maintenance. Like duct tape over a cracked windshield. Because the truth is, I didn't know how to be just me anymore. I'd spent years being her husband. That was my role. My rhythm. Now I was some guy who watered a plant out of habit and forgot to buy groceries for 2 weeks straight. And the worst part? She was fine. At least online. Claire and Jenna were posting soft-filtered selfies with captions like grateful for growth and living authentically. I'd scroll past them without meaning to. Sometimes I'd stop. Sometimes I'd zoom in, just to punish myself, I guess. She looked happy. Lighter. Like I'd been the weight she needed to shed. Meanwhile, I was standing in an aisle at Target debating which toothbrush looked less lonely. That's when I realized something. Moving on isn't about becoming someone new. It's about learning to exist again, slowly, painfully, without the version of your life you thought was real. And maybe, eventually, you stop checking the time wondering if she's home yet. Because she's not coming back. And you don't want her to. You just want to forget what it felt like to be left behind while she called it freedom. There wasn't a single moment where I suddenly felt better. No big emotional breakthrough. No sunrise epiphany. Just less pain, one day. That's how it goes, I guess. At first, the grief is this constant static in your head, loud, distracting, always there. But then, without realizing it, the volume starts to fade. The silence gets quieter. The memories don't stab quite as deep. One morning, I woke up and didn't think about her right away. That used to be the first thing. The ache, the loop of how could she, the flashbacks of laughter that apparently meant nothing. But this time, I got up, brushed my teeth, made coffee, and only halfway through the second sip did I realize she hadn't crossed my mind. It didn't feel like joy. It felt like relief. That subtle lift when you've been carrying something for too long and finally set it down. And look, I didn't suddenly forgive her. I didn't reach some spiritual place of understanding or light incense and thank her for the life lesson. No, what she did was cruel. Calculated. She lied to my face while building a second life in the shadows of our home. But I also didn't feel the need to carry it anymore. I'd been keeping it close, like pain was a part of my identity now. But I didn't want that to be the story I told myself forever. The guy whose wife cheated with her best friend and convinced him it was normal. That's not who I am. That's just what happened. So I stopped checking her socials. Stopped opening old photos. Deleted the shared cloud folder she forgot I had access to. Burned some old cards she gave me, not out of anger, just to make space. Let the ash float into the air like a quiet goodbye. That night, I slept better than I had in months. No dreams. No memories. Just rest. Maybe that's all healing is, really sleeping through the night without wondering where it all went wrong. It came out of nowhere, like most things that actually matter. I was at the hardware store, of all places. Saturday morning. Picking up screws for this half-finished bookshelf I'd been pretending to care about. I hadn't shaved in days, hair a mess, still wearing the same hoodie I slept in. Definitely not giving off emotionally available vibes. She was in the next aisle, looking at cabinet handles. Not Claire. Someone else. She caught me glancing at the packaging like I was deciphering alien code and laughed. Not mockingly, just this soft, casual laugh that said, "Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing either." We ended up talking for 5 minutes. Maybe 6. She asked for a second opinion on brushed nickel versus matte black. I said matte black was bold. She said she liked bold. I didn't read into it. Until she smiled. And that smile stuck with me. I didn't get her number. Didn't ask her name. I wasn't ready for that. But I walked out of that store with a weird lightness in my chest. Not fireworks. Not butterflies. Just space. A little room where something new might eventually live. And it scared me, honestly. Because I'd spent so long being bitter, building walls, protecting myself from the next betrayal, I forgot what it felt like to even consider letting someone in. Even in a small way. Even for a conversation in the aisle next to the paint rollers. Later that night, I sat on the edge of the bed in my little rental and thought about her. Not Claire. Not Jenna. Not what I lost. Just this random stranger with kind eyes who reminded me, for 5 minutes, that maybe I'm not as broken as I thought. That maybe, beneath the hurt and the sarcasm and the bruises life hands you, there's still a guy in there worth knowing. And that maybe someone else will think so too. That's not love. That's not a new chapter. But it is a page. It hit me in the middle of the grocery store. Somewhere between the peanut butter and the cereal aisle. Stupid, right? I was just walking, minding my own business, debating crunchy versus smooth, and then, like someone threw a rock through the window of my brain, I remembered her laugh. Not just any laugh. That laugh. The one Claire used to let out when something caught her off guard. Real, unfiltered, throw your head back laughter. Not the polite kind. The rare one. I remembered the first time I heard it. We were in a diner. Early in the relationship. She spilled water all over the table, and for some reason, it struck her as the funniest thing in the world. She laughed so hard, she cried. I sat there smiling like an idiot, thinking, this is it. This is the woman I want to laugh with for the rest of my life. And now, years later, in a grocery store lit by flickering fluorescents, I stood still with a jar of Jif in my hand, wondering if Jenna ever got to hear that laugh. I bet she did. And that stung in a way I wasn't ready for. Because here's the thing no one tells you, healing isn't a straight line. It's not a staircase you climb and never fall back down. It's a wave. A spiral. You can feel almost okay one day, and then get gut-punched by a memory while reaching for instant oatmeal. It doesn't mean you're not healing. It just means you cared. I leaned on the cart for a minute. Let the memory pass through me like a storm. Didn't fight it. Didn't dwell on it either. Just let it hurt. Then let it go. Because the truth is, I don't want her back. But I do miss who I thought she was. That version of her, the one from the diner, she's long gone. Maybe never even existed. But my love for her? That was real. And even if it landed in the wrong place, I'm not ashamed of it. I picked up the peanut butter crunchy, in case you're wondering, and finished my shopping. Because that's how it goes. You remember. You hurt. You keep walking anyway. There wasn't a big moment. No dramatic gesture. No final showdown or Instagram unfollow spree. Just a Tuesday morning where I sat on the porch with my coffee and realized I didn't hate her anymore. Not forgiving. Not forgetting. Just done needing to carry it. That was the real shift. I used to think moving on meant finding someone new. Starting fresh. Proving I was still wanted. Still worth it. But sitting there in that quiet, listening to the breeze move through the trees, I realized peace doesn't come when someone else loves you. It comes when you stop needing the apology. Claire never apologized. She never admitted the damage she did, or the way she rewrote our story like I was some side character in her self-actualization arc. And for a long time, I thought I needed her to understand what she took from me. But not anymore. I'd taken back something she didn't think I'd ever notice missing, myself. The version of me that had patience, that listened, that built things, not just furniture, but trust, warmth, a home. She got the version of me that loved deeply. Jenna got the version of her that lied easily. They can have each other. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I'm not waiting to be chosen again. Because now, I'm choosing me. I deleted her number that morning. Didn't announce it. Didn't overthink it. Just held my thumb on the contact until the little trash can icon popped up. Then let it go. That's simple. And you know what? The silence that followed didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. So here I am. No dramatic finale. No revenge fantasy fulfilled. Just a guy who thought he had a solid life, lost it in the most unexpected way, and somehow came out the other side scarred. Yeah, but still standing. People always want a clean ending. They want to know what happened next. Did I meet someone new? Did Claire and Jenna crash and burn? Did karma make an appearance? Truth is, I don't know. And maybe I don't need to. Last I heard, they moved in together. Bought a house with white shutters and a mailbox shaped like a cat. One of our old friends told me, like they were handing over a tabloid headline. I just nodded. Didn't ask for details. Didn't want them. What I do know is this. I wake up now without checking my phone for missed texts that never come. I cook meals for one and don't feel lonely doing it. I've picked up old hobbies I forgot I loved. Woodworking, hiking, letting music fill the silence instead of using it to drown something out. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't noticed that stupid yellow mug in the dish rack. Maybe I'd still be there, playing the part, thinking loyalty meant letting yourself get quietly erased. But I noticed. And once you see the truth, you can't go back to pretending. So no, I don't have a fairy tale ending. I've got scars. I've got baggage. I've got days that still ache out of nowhere. But I've also got me back. And for now, that's enough. What happens next? I guess we'll see.